I am here with Robert Safir. Is that how you pronounce it? He is a music creator and an author, and he wrote a book called Make Your Music Video and Put It Online. And this is a very great tool for any music creator who needs a visual element to their music to help them get it out there into the world. So I guess let's start by talking about you a little bit. You're a music creator yourself.
Yes, I go way back to a long time ago when music was on vinyl, and you spun it around and the needle came down on. That's how far back I go. But I've been in the business for a long time as a songwriter, composer. Also owned a studio called Track Record here in Hollywood for a number of years. I worked with some very good people of all levels. I always remember that it was not necessarily the artists who made it already that were the most interesting. It was people that had demos who were trying to break into the market that were the most interesting and sometimes the most talented. So it was a wonderful experience having a studio in Los Angeles. It wouldn't be wonderful today because everybody has their own studios. And so it's become very competitive, as you can imagine.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about how you came up with the idea for the book.
The book is based on the idea, getting back to the subject of demos, it used to be a long time ago, it was okay, it was good enough just to have a demo. At that time, I was telling everybody, you know, your demo should really sound like a master, because just having something that's, quote, good enough is not really good enough. The competition is too great. There are too many people in the market that want to do what you want to do, and you can't leave it up to the imagination of a record company executive to tell whether you're good or not. So back then, that was kind of a controversy. There were a lot of people who said, just do a piano and a vocal and you're okay. Well, we know now that that wasn't true. Looking back, it really is necessary to put your best foot forward. And taking it to the concept of this book, I would also argue that the bar has been raised even more. And you've got to market yourself using every tool that's available to you. And video is one of the tools that's available to you. And that, just like recording, is no longer restricted to somebody who has their own production company, big or small. You have access to those tools. And if you have access to those tools, you need to ask yourself, if you haven't done it already, why haven't I made a video? And so the book helps you do that. It takes you step by step and guides you through the decision-making process of how to make a video on your own. Now, that video could be anything from simple, I've got a small Canon camera, digital camera, I've got the song, I know I have an idea of what I want to do, and you go do it, all the way up to having, you know, high-end production equipment and going for something of, you know, more production value. That's up to you. But the kind of things that go into the process of deciding what to do and how to do it is all in the book. And then, so you've got the musical component, you've got the video component, and then the last component that I talk about in here is how to get it on the internet. Not only technically, because there's a lot of technical things about compression and file formats and stuff that you got to understand, but instead of bogging you down with that, I shoot straight to the kind of things that you need to do, the kind of formats that will be accepted on YouTube, on VO, on MySpace or Facebook, so that it's internet ready. That's the technical side of it. But then there's the marketing side of it, which I also cover, which talks about how to be competitive when everybody now is still doing what you're trying to do. They know about the social networks, they know about making videos to some extent, and they're trying to arm themselves with enough ammunition to break through. And breaking through, as you know, is difficult. The internet has democratized the music industry, but it's also made it very, very difficult to stand out. But if you have a strong act, if you've got strong music, if you're a great artist, and everybody, of course, thinks that they are, but if you are, and you have a music video to go with it, and the savvy of where to do it, and how to market it, and how to distinguish yourself and build a fan base, then you've got more going for you.
Now, I know that you have worked fairly extensively in digital and online marketing, and tell me a little bit about how you've applied all these things in your career. Tell me about some of your personal experiences with working in video and working with the internet to market yourself.
Well, what I did was probably what most of the people here have done. When MySpace was rising in popularity, my first reaction was like, who needs that? And then I started to realize that it's really musicians, artists, composers, songwriters that are there, and just tons of them are using MySpace. So I did the same thing. And it was great because not only did I have an avenue for putting my music there for people to listen to, I had an avenue for putting videos there for people to watch. And so the first thing I found out was if you put a video on MySpace, it's going to go on your video page, and people won't necessarily see it. So that's another thing I cover in here is how do you put a video on your MySpace page so that when they go to your main page, it's right there. So I learned from the process of trying to do it myself. And the other thing that was neat about it, and ASCAP Expo is a great example of it, was I started to network. I started to meet more people in the business in virtual reality land. But then I came to the ASCAP Expo back in 2007, and I met a lot of them for real, one-on-one. So the social networks obviously have a lot going for them.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Just like other folks, I've tried to maximize that. The only thing I don't like about it, and it's my own personal qualm, is on Facebook I have to become a fan of myself. And then I have to ask everybody else to become a fan of me, and I just think it's awkward. So hopefully they'll smooth that out around the rough edges. But I just did it. Thank you. I like me. Thank you.
So yes, like you just said, there is a lot of trial and error involved in using these these online outlets, and you have already been through it and can provide a lot of great tips so that everyone else can start with a foundation of information. They don't have to go through all that themselves. That's fantastic. So I don't know if anyone out here has any questions for Robert, but we could maybe take a couple questions from the audience. Does anyone have anything they're curious about? Yes.
Yes, I do.
So yeah, the question is, does he explain in his book anything about the software for editing videos and applying that to different budget levels?
Yes, I do. I go into that, and this is a very good question, because what I had to do in writing this was make a decision on how far into that I want to go. Because if I really delved into it, then I've got a book on video editing, and there's a ton of books on video editing. So what I did was I described what some of those tools are on enough of a level that you can make a decision as to what works for you, but all of it from composer or songwriter's point of view. So I didn't get into the how-to part of it, but I got into here's some things you can use in order to get there. That makes sense?
Does anyone else have any? Yeah, that was a great question. Thank you. Does anyone else have a question that they'd like to ask?
Somebody have a statement?
What I think is really interesting about it is that every music creator is a person who could use a visual element to their music. This is definitely not exclusive. I feel like maybe sometimes people think that music videos are exclusive to rock bands, or that it's something that's only for someone who is a performer. But no, a visual element to a song is important for anyone who is writing a song.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, the first music video I ever thought of, but it was never done, was, if you know the music of Simon and Garfunkel, it's very, very visual. Just the way Paul Simon writes, the things that he writes, you can just see them the way he describes it. So way back during that era, I thought that that would make a great way to make, it wasn't a video at that time, they only had film, but it would be great to combine those two things where you could describe that kind of visual music with visuals. And sure enough, you know, along came MTV and VH1, and that's basically and essentially what people have done. The book goes into, though, what kind of song makes a good video, you know? So you've got your repertoire. Maybe you already have some song in mind, but if you don't, it guides you through that decision process as well. And then you can either pull something from your repertoire or record something new. It goes through all those kinds of decisions.
Now, besides fans, who are obviously a target for a music video, how can you apply it to your professional endeavors? How can you use these as a demo for searching for deals or for, you know, networking professionally?
I think the answer to that is all of the above. It does serve the purpose of exposing your music to other folks. It does serve the purpose of distinguishing yourself from other folks, but it's also a networking tool. And a lot of that will depend on which particular site you plan to post it on. There's a huge difference, for example, between MySpace and LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn is not where I would put my music video, but it's certainly how I would network with other people in the business that I might want to hook up with. The book goes into a lot of that stuff, and there's a lot of different sites that are specialized in video. Then within that, there's sites that are specialized in music video, and all of that stuff can be broken down so that you really have a good idea of what you can do and what would be beneficial from a marketing perspective. Another question?
That's a fantastic question. So the question is, for those of us who are mostly audio people, for those of us who mostly perceive with our ears, does the book give us any guidance on some visuals, some good visuals?
No, it actually does. If you've seen music videos, and I'm sure you have, it could be anything as simple as you have a live shoot of your band, and you cut between the different people in the band, but it's a live shoot from beginning to end, and that's kind of very, very simple and basic, and probably boring. So you go from something like that to situations where you might have the band or the artist having a costume change in the process, right? Every scene or every other scene, they're wearing something different. That was very novel at first, but that gets old after a while too. As a matter of fact, I recently saw a music video done out of one of the film schools, and that's all it was. It was almost every single bar had a different costume change. That can be boring, right? Then there's the ways you can cut away to something that's illustrating what you're talking about, but then back to you performing it, back and forth. Then there's the kind of music video that has an intro, right, where a story is being sort of laid out. You might think of Michael Jackson's Thriller, for example, and then it cuts into the music. And then there's music that tells a story. There's imaginary visuals that you can use that aren't literal. Then there's literal stuff. I get into all of that so that you can have different ideas. I don't tell you exactly what to do because that's obviously where your artistry is, but it gives you some pointers on what you might think about.
And you probably also talk a little bit about what about if the artist doesn't want to be in the video?
Actually, I never covered that.
No.
No, because if they didn't want to be in the video, they probably wouldn't have bought the book.
I was thinking more along the lines of alternative visuals that you can use if you yourself don't want to be on camera.
I think you could have a lot of it covering other stuff, but I think people are also very accustomed to at least seeing the artist once, if nothing else.